Here's the story of the loophole that got me into college full-time when I was 14 years old and got me to graduate with my bachelor's degree when I was 18. What's up, guys? I'm Father David Michael Moses. You know what to do. If you find this stuff interesting, make sure you subscribe because we got lots of fun content planned for you. So yes, I am a Catholic priest, but this video is actually not about Catholicism or about the priesthood at all.
Wait a minute.
This is just about academics. This is a question that comes up quite a bit for me because I was ordained a priest when I was 25 and because I never really went to high school. So people kind of wonder how that's possible. And for me, it's kind of interesting to talk about because there was a kind of a loophole that got me into college really young. And actually anyone could do this. I'm surprised that more people actually don't do this. So I think it might be worth talking about. The first part of the story is that I was homeschooled when I was younger. All 5 of my siblings and myself were homeschooled at different times. In fact, my mom started homeschooling my sister at a time when homeschooling was not very common. My mom said she was always ready with all of the papers for all the homework and the schoolwork and everything, that just in case the police came up on the door and knocked and said, "Hey, are you really teaching your kids here?" she would have all of her ducks in a row. She was very, very meticulous about that because at the time it was kind of, it wasn't sketchy, but it was viewed as being sketchy. And now it's a much different situation. Now there's tons of homeschool groups. It's much more mainstream, but back then it was kind of misunderstood. So my oldest sister actually was homeschooled until she was a senior in high school. Then she went into high school. And actually my mom was almost surprised that they took all of her grades, my mom's grades, for my sister. And so my sister would have been the valedictorian, but she never liked to exercise when she was younger. And so my mom always gave her C's for PE. And the school took the C's, averaged her GPA, and said, she's just off from being valedictorian because of all the PE grades. So I was interesting that they took those so seriously, but all of us went into school at different times. My younger brother went in at like 5th grade. My sister went in, sister just above me went in middle school. I was the only one that never actually went into public or private school. My parents were absolutely heroes for really prioritizing our education, and my mom was really good about knowing what was best for each one of the kids. And for me personally, I just always been pretty self-motivated. Like when I was homeschooled when I was younger, I would wake up, at like 4 a.m. and I would do like 3 days worth of school before lunch. I would just pack it in so I could spend the afternoon writing songs or doing other stuff. So I was pretty disciplined. So she was always looking for different ways to challenge each of us and different ways to challenge me. And so in my 8th grade year, I started taking a few kind of co-op classes. So we took like a math class with some other homeschoolers from a guy who was, a math expert. And we took like a science class with some other kids. So certain subjects it made sense to do kind of in a community setting. And my mom had this thought. She said, hey, there's this thing called dual credit classes at the junior college. Maybe you could start taking those dual credit classes. So usually what happens with dual credit, what it is basically is it's a college class, but it counts for your high school credit. So a lot of classes in college and high school are essentially the same source material. So, biology 101 in high school is very similar subject matter to biology 101 in college. It's the basics, maybe a little bit more in depth in college, a little more demanding, but it's basically the same stuff. So the idea was, hey, let's let some of these high schoolers take the college class and they can count for that high school credit, because that should, if it's a college class, it should cover anything that they would cover in high school. But what usually happens with dual credit classes is you take those as a junior and senior in high school. And in most cases, you're limited to like 2 a semester. So you have quite a few high school students who graduate from high school with 24 credit hours is where you normally max out. Almost your first year of college done, which is really cool. But my mom thought it was kind of a loophole to say, okay, is there any reason you can't start taking these dual credit classes earlier? And we looked at it and there really wasn't. So I took the test at the junior college to get into these classes and I passed it. And so I was in the 2nd semester of my 8th grade year. I just turned 14 and my mom registered me for a history class. And what's interesting about dual credit is it's actually half off. So it's, even though you're taking the full class for the full credit, it's way cheaper. So I remember the first day my mom and I couldn't drive because I was 14. So the first day my mom and my grandmother drove me to the college campus, and then walked me to the classroom. And I was like, okay, this is it. And I waved to them, and I went into class, and it went well. I got an A in that history class.
I got an A.
Right on.
It was different, obviously, than homeschooling, but I was able to get it done. And so the next semester, my mom, again, was like, wait a second, what's stopping us from you taking a full load of classes, just going full-time college now? And so that's what we did. We got permission from the vice dean. They had to approve that course load for me, but that's what we did. So I remember the next semester, like one of the teachers, the first day I was sitting there, I mean, I look young now. I'm 31, but I look young. You can imagine me at 14. I looked like I was like 11 probably. And I remember the first day I was sitting there in class, and one of the teachers was just like the first thing they said when they walked out, they were like, how old are you? And I was like, oh, I'm 14. And they were like, okay, well, great. I would get like looks from different people in the hallways as I walked down. And, it's worth saying here, I am definitely not a genius. I don't have a photographic memory or anything like that, which is why I think almost anybody could do this. My skill set is much more like creativity, writing music, creative writing, that kind of stuff, making videos. Surprise, surprise. That's more what my gift is. But I am a very self-motivated person. When I see something that's worth investing in, I go for it. And for me at this time, it was very much, okay, I'm invested in making these classes work. That's what we did. So I had to get used to note taking, but because I was homeschooled, we didn't have like class lectures, like my mom wasn't giving me a 1-hour lecture growing up. So I had to learn to take notes, and my handwriting deteriorated. Like I used to have beautiful handwriting, and I started to get used to having to write so fast that it really went downhill from there. To this day, my handwriting is really, really bad. But I did that for 2 years, basically at the junior college. I got my associate's degree first in biotechnology. Honestly, I picked biotechnology because it just sounded cool. I'm still not exactly sure what it is. But at the end of those 2 years, I then graduated with my associates, and they actually asked me to do the invocation for the graduation ceremony. So I was 16. I was like probably 4 years younger than just about everybody else. But it was beautiful to, even then, I'm kind of a wink from God, I think, about my vocation, because they asked me to do the invocation. And I still don't know why they asked me, but it was kind of a cool memory. So at that point, what I did was I had enough credit hours to be a transfer student. And so I just transferred to a university also near my parents' house called University of Houston, Clear Lake. So it's kind of in the network of University of Houston, but it's its own entity there. So what's interesting is I never took the SAT, and I didn't have a high school diploma or a GED. To that university, I was just a transfer student. They weren't checking my high school diploma. They weren't checking my SAT scores. They were just like, oh, this is a transfer student. They looked at my GPA, and they let me in. Again, I'm not sure why more people don't do this. And I will note, I was still living at home at that time. I was 14 when I started that, 16 when I transferred. So it just didn't make any sense to really live on campus. I appreciated still being able to be at home. So during those next 2 years, that's when I kind of started discerning priesthood. I got my bachelor's degree in the humanities with a pre-law track. So I was looking at like medical school at one point, and then decided instead to kind of pursue law school because I was so young. I was going to graduate when I was 18. I had so much time. I thought, why not get some higher education? So I actually took an LSAT prep course during that time and ended up taking the LSAT during that final year. So all that to say, it was never really the plan, but when I was 18, I graduated with my bachelor's degree. I was finishing college. So when all my friends at 18 were graduating from high school, I was graduating from college.
Graduation day.
Again, that wasn't really the plan when we started. My mom wasn't like, okay, in 8th grade, you're going to take dual credit classes, then you're going to go here, and you're going to go full-time, and you're going to... Instead, it was just like, oh, let's do the next step thing. Hey, David Michael, would you want to try this? Let's do this. And it just kind of worked out really well. But I do want to know, in terms of like socialization with this, people wonder, okay, I was homeschooled first, wasn't around with tons of people my age, school-wise. And then for my academics, I'm here at this university with people who are at least 4 years older than me. At the second university, it was like kind of a commuter school with a lot of older people coming back to get their degrees. So a lot of people in those classes, those last 2 years, like they had kids that were my age or older than me. So if that was the case, what was my social life like? And I'm really grateful that I was very involved in my youth group growing up. So at the church, I had a lot of really, really awesome friends. I played a bunch of sports growing up. I played water polo, baseball, football, soccer, basketball. In high school, I was still playing water polo and lacrosse. I started playing lacrosse in high school as well. So I had friends in some of the kind of the sports world. And we did have some friends in a homeschool group as well that I got to know. So I'm thankful. I think I had a good amount of socialization. I went to prom with a girl when I was a senior, went to homecoming dances, so I think I got some of that experience in a healthy way. So that's the story, guys. That's how it worked out. What do you think about that? I'm still surprised, like I said, that more people don't do this because the dual credit classes were half off. And I was able to get through so much of this stuff so fast. And I think, if somebody did this, you graduate when you're 18. Obviously, I went into seminary, got ordained a priest when I was 25, which is actually the youngest you can be. If you're any younger than 25, the Pope has to actually approve for you to be ordained. So that's the reason I was as young as you can be, is because I started college so young. So seminary was a little bit shorter. But for other people, maybe not called the priesthood, go to law school, go to medical school, go to PhD, something like that. I think this kind of track is kind of interesting. I enjoyed it a lot. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know if you'd like to hear the story about what happened with law school or the story throughout seminary. And if you're interested in other videos, you can check this one out here. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on future stuff. And we'll see you next time. God bless you guys.